Howdy, my name is Nick Walter, and I'm going to walk you through a quick tutorial on how to make an Apple Watch app. And we're not going to do anything fancy, we're just going to make an app for the watch in which we list a bunch of emojis, and if you tap on one of them, it will zoom in big on the emoji, and it's going to have a definition below it. Nothing earth-shattering. But we're going to learn how to make an app, and you don't have to have any programming experience to take this tutorial. All you need is a Mac. So I'm going to walk you through step by step everything you need, getting Xcode up on your machine, which is what we use to make apps, and get it running in the little simulator on your computer. So let's jump into it and make this app. So first things first, we need to make sure that you have Xcode on your machine, and Xcode is a program made by Apple which allows developers to make apps for iPhones, iPads, Macs, and now Apple Watch. So first let's open up Safari or whatever web browser you want and go to developer.apple.com/WatchKit. Okay, once you're there, look at all the gorgeous stuff. Just kind of give some info. Here's a great video on some technical stuff. Tons of great resources here. So a programming guide, which is a lot of the technical documentation and some framework references. This is gold if you have some programming background. They have a couple of apps here that you can run and just kind of test the different things that WatchKit can do. But what we're interested in is right here, Xcode 6.2 beta. This is going to allow us to make the Apple Watch apps. So click on this to download and scroll down. Make sure you don't get 6.1. Go down a little bit more and get the 6.2 beta. And so even if you already have Xcode on your machine, you'll notice I have, if I click on the Launchpad Xcode here, this is only Xcode 6.1. I need to get this beta 6.2 to do Apple Watch stuff. So you need to be a developer with Apple. And if you don't have one, you can hit the register button here. But if you do have one, go ahead and put in your login credentials here and click sign in. Okay, so once you've done that, it will start downloading that Xcode file, and it's a big one. It's like 3 gigs, so hopefully you've got a fast internet connection, but I'm going to skip forward to when that file finishes, and we'll move on from there. Okay, once that file is finished downloading, you should have an Xcode 6.2 beta.dmg file. So we'll click on that, and we need to drag Xcode beta into our applications. Okay, and we're going to wait for it to copy over. All right, now once that's finished copying over, you can see here I have Xcode and Xcode beta. So if you already had Xcode on your machine, you'll have both of these. And if you didn't have Xcode at all before, you'll just have Xcode beta. Regardless, we just want to use Xcode beta. This is the one with the Apple Watch stuff inside of it. So we'll click on that and wait for this little dude to bounce around. Okay, it's going to go out and verify it. You do what you got to do, man. Okay, it's saying this is an application download from the internet. You sure want to open it? Oh yeah, for sure, open. Okay, so we click that, and now we wait. Okay, once that's done, you'll get this little agreement box. Hit agree on that. Type in the password to your computer. Okay, and my Xcode beta crashed, and it's a beta, so it's not perfect. If that happens, just go back and click on Xcode beta to relaunch it. Voila, here we go. So here we have welcome to Xcode. What we want to do is click create a new Xcode project here. Okay. All right, so we want single view application, hit next. And for the name of this, remember we're making this Emoji Dictionary, so let's just call it that, Emoji Dictionary. Okay, and for organization name, just put your name there. This organization identifier, it's supposed to be a reverse of your kind of personal website. So for me, I have the website madeupbypeople.com where I talk about development and stuff, but you do it in reverse, so it's com.madeupbypeople. For you, you don't have to have a website. You can put whatever you want here, but just something maybe like com.yourname.I smell really great, like whatever you want. You just kind of want something that's unique to you. So for language, make sure that Swift is selected. Devices, we want iPhone. we're going to uncheck this use core data box and we're going to hit next. Okay, so now it's asking where do you want to save it, and I'm just going to save this into my documents folder. So I'm going to hit create. All right, so what did we just make? Well, we just made an empty iPhone project. So in fact, if you hit the play button up here in the left, it's going to run an iPhone simulator on your computer, which shows you what your app looks like if it were to run on an iPhone. And you can see it's just all white and there's nothing magical about it. And you may be saying, well, we want to make an Apple Watch app. What the heck is this? Well, you have to have an iOS app to have an Apple Watch app. The two are connected. In fact, when you are running an app on an Apple Watch, the code is actually being executed over on the iPhone, and just the results of that are being displayed on the Apple Watch. You have to have an iOS app in order to have an Apple Watch app. So we're going to go ahead, now that we have this, and click on Emoji Dictionary here, and click this little selection box, and we want to use Add Target. This is where we add the Apple Watch app. So if you look in this list here, we have Apple Watch. We want to select that, and we have only one option, and it's Apple Watch. So make sure that's selected, hit next. Okay, so for the product name, you can't change that. It's just Emoji Dictionary Watch app. Keep all this stuff the same. We're going to keep this very simple, so we're not going to do a notification scene or a glance scene. Make sure that that's selected as Swift. But once you have all that done, just hit finish. And now you will notice when we go up here, we have two new things. So we have this Emoji Dictionary Watch app and Emoji Dictionary WatchKit extension. So as long as you have those, things are going great. So if we look down here in the bottom left, we have two new folders. Those are the two I was talking about. So let's expand both of those. And on the bottom one, Emoji Dictionary Watch app, if we click on this interface.storyboard, we get this little preview of what our Apple Watch app is going to look like. And that's what storyboards are. Storyboards are a way for you to kind of create visually what your app is going to look like. So just to make sure that this is working, we're going to select this square here, which is the first part of our Apple Watch app. And on the right side here, we have some options. We're going to click color. We'll choose other and just pick some funky color, whatever you want. I'm going to do kind of an orange here in honor of Swift. So once you have your color selected, go up here next to the play and the stop button. If you tap on this box, choose Emoji Dictionary Watch app, and then hit the play button. And once it's running, you'll have your little simulator here, and you're like, where's the watch? You have to go to Hardware, Externals Displays, and we have two different sizes for the Apple Watch. And let's pick the big one here. Okay, so now that we have that, it's going to be black, but go back to Xcode, hit the stop button, and let's hit play again. Again, this is just kind of some beta stuff you got to work through. So, but once you've done that and hit play, and then go to your simulator, whoa ho ho, so there's the orange that we had. So we can't do anything with this yet, but at least we have an app that's on this simulated Apple Watch, right? Like, and we affected it by choosing the color. If we go back to the storyboard and we say, I want to put this back to black. I'm going to do black color and hit run on that. Okay, build succeeded, and we go to our app. Now it turns to black. So at least things are working. So what do we need to do now? We need to add the list of emojis here. And in the Apple Watch, we do this by adding a table. So let's go back to this interface.storyboard here, where we have the first screen of our Apple Watch. So down at the bottom right here is a list of things that you can add into your Apple Watch app. So we're going to scroll down until we find table here, and we're just going to click and drag this over and let go just like that. So now that we've done that, we have this table where we could list a bunch of things. This is kind of like if you think about on an iPhone, on iPod, if you scroll through all the music on there, it kind of, just runs through it. That's what a table is here. We can scroll through a bunch of items. It's like a list. So we've added that here into our storyboard, but we need it to show up in code. And so if we click here in this other folder that we had, Emoji Dictionary WatchKit extension, we have this interface controller.swift. And this is kind of the code behind this little black box here, or this black screen. And so what we need to do is take the table that we added into here and have it be reflected here inside of the code. So that the way that we do that is we hit these circles here, which does a split view for us. And now you'll see that this is the code that we had over here in interface controller.swift. It's on the right side. And now we can take this table row and drag it over into here. Now to make sure that we're selecting the right thing, hit this little box here, and this will show us everything that's in our storyboard. So we have our interface controller, which is this black box. Then we have the table. Inside of the table there's some different stuff, but just make sure we have table selected. And we're going to do a control drag over here. And it's going to ask you what name do you want. And let's just give it the name of table. So we hit connect. Let's hit back the lines here to go full screen. And if we go to our interface controller, we can see we have this line added here, at IB outlet weak var table WK interface table exclamation point. You may be saying, what the freak does that mean? All this is saying is that we have a interface table, which is a table, in our storyboard, and we're representing it here, and we gave it the name of table. Okay, so we could have named this whatever we wanted. You could have called it my table, the table, emoji table. It doesn't really matter. All that matters is that you connect it in here. So now that we have a table inside of our storyboard, and we have it represented in code. So that's good. Now we need to add things into the table. So to do that, you can see here there is a table row, and a row is what we call an item inside of the list, right? Or as you're scrolling through the table, there's a bunch of rows. So on the music app on an iPod, that would be like each of the songs or whatever. So with Apple Watch programming, we have things called table row controllers. And so you can see that it's right here, table row controller. And we need to connect this into a new file. So right click here on this Emoji Dictionary WatchKit extension and click add, or just new file here. We want Cocoa Touch class, and for the subclass we want NS object, so you just type in here capital NS object and it should autocomplete to that. And for the class name, we're just going to call this emoji row, capital E, capital R there. You can name this whatever you want, but that's just what I'm calling it. There's no like official thing that you have to name it. We want to have language as Swift. That's great. Hit next, and we're going to save it with the rest of our project. Hit create, and you'll notice now we have this emoji row.swift here inside of our folder. So I'm going to just drag this and make it close to our interface controller. You don't need to do that. I just like to keep things organized. So now that we've done that, let's go to our interface. We need to connect this table row with this emoji row code that we just made. So make sure that you have table row controller selected here, not the group, but table row controller, and have this little newspaper thing selected here. And for class, just start typing emoji row, and you should get the autocomplete to pop up. So hit tab on your computer, and that's going to fill in the rest here. Once you have that, now this table row is connected with this emoji row. So we've been talking about a lot. We still haven't seen great stuff on our app, but please have some patience. Things are coming soon. So what do we want to be inside of each of these table rows? Because there's not going to be just one here. There's going to be a bunch of them here. And what we want is the little emojis, right? And so the way to represent text or an emoji in App Watch programming is through a label. So click down here on a label, and we're just going to do a control drag inside of the table row. Okay, and once we have that, you say, okay, that's great, but how does that help anything? We need to again connect this label into this emoji row. So while you have this label selected, hit the circles again, and you'll notice that emoji row doesn't pop up, but instead interface controller does. So we have to do a little bit of magic. Just click up here and change this to emoji row.swift. Okay, now that we've done that, this is a little bit complicated, but not too much. Just hold down Control on your keyboard, it's in the bottom left, and then do a Control, while you're holding Control, drag over into this file, and once you see this blue line pop up, simply let go. Okay, now that you've done that, it's asking you, what do you want to name this? And so we're taking this label, which is just a way to represent text, and we're pulling it from the storyboard and we want to represent it in code. So let's just give it the name of emoji row label. Okay, we're going to hit connect, and we're going to get an error here, and that's because we have to do some imports whenever we do specialized things, and this label that we just added is a special WatchKit thing, so we have to do an import capital watch capital kit, and once we do that, everything calms down and Xcode is happy. Okay, so we now have this label in which we're going to enter in the emoji. In fact, to just see how that works, double click on this label and let's put an emoji. Now, to get emojis on your Mac, if you don't know, hit Control, Command, and Spacebar all at the same time, and you get all of these options to show up. And we just want an emoji, so let's put in the flushed face. Okay, so double click on that. It's going to add it in there, and you can see there's a little label. And we eventually just want a list of those, but we just got to start somewhere. So now that we've done that, let's make our table show a bunch of emojis. Okay, now that we've done that, let's go to interface controller.swift, and these different blocks of code here that have these curly brackets, these are called functions, and so we actually aren't going to use these two, so you can actually just select those and delete them, and we don't need these 2 lines of code here, so let's just get rid of that. Okay, so now we just have this one function, and it's called the init function. This is code that gets called right when the first screen in your app shows up. And so inside of here, we want to fill that table with a bunch of emojis. So first thing we're going to do is say self.table, and we're just talking about this table that we made up here, dot set table.set number of rows, and you can see that it's asking us for 2 things. It's asking us for number of rows, and it's asking us for with row type. So this is basically Apple just saying, hey, we're going to show this table for you with all these things, but we need to know how many things you want to show and what type of row it is that you want to show. So let's just say for now we want to show 20 things, so just type 20 there. And with row type, do 2 quotation marks, and inside of there we're going to say capital emoji row. Okay, so we're saying we want 20 rows and we want them to be emoji rows. Now copy whatever it is that you just put into here. If you did emoji row, that's great, but if you call it something else, that's fine too. Just take that and hit control copy, command copy, and go back to this interface.storyboard. And if we expand down here to our table, we want to select the emoji row, and now click this little caret thing here, and in the identifier we need to paste what we had over here in interface controller. So whatever you typed here, go to the interface storyboard and put it in the identifier for the row controller, which ours is called emoji row. Okay, so now that we've done that, let's hit play and see what we've got. So we hit play, and if we look at our app, whoa! Isn't that sweet? So we have this little table in here where we can literally scroll through and see all these faces. Now they're all the same. This isn't exactly what we want. We want different emojis. But this is a great start, right? Like, this is cool. You have a functioning Apple Watch app. So let's keep moving forward. This is great. Let's click on interface controller.swift. And now let's create that list of emojis that we want to show up inside of the table. So right below where we created the table, but above this init function, we're going to type var emojis with an S equals, and then do 2 square brackets. Make sure these aren't the curly ones or parentheses. We need the square brackets. And inside of here, this is where we're going to list all of our emojis. So do the double quotes, comma, double quotes, comma, double quotes. So what's going on here? So we're making this emojis list, the technical word for it is an array, but so it's going to be a list or an array of a bunch of emojis. And these quotation marks are ways to represent text. So we can just put things like hello or your mom, whatever you want, but we don't actually want text, we want emojis. So again, let's do that Control Command Spacebar and bring up our emojis. Let's add in, we'll just do, let's do the heart eyes. So we're going to add in heart eyes, okay, and we want to, instead of having your mom here, we're going to insert in, how about an animal? So let's go to nature, let's do the hamster. Okay, and for our last one, let's go ahead and add, let's go to places, and let's do this church, because this one looks really cool when it's blown up. Okay, so here are our 3 emojis, and they're in this list or array. Okay, and somehow this got collapsed, so just hit this arrow here to expand this back out. So we have this list of emojis, and we want these to show up in the table. So the first thing that we want to do is when the table asks how many rows do we want, we just want to say however many items are inside of this emoji array, that's how many we want to show up. So instead of 20, we're going to type self.emojis.count. Okay, so what's going on here? Well, first, this self.emojis is just referencing this emojis array that we just made, and the .count just says however many items are inside of this array, which right now is 3, that's the number that it's going to spit out and give to Apple here to know how many rows there are. So to just make sure that this is working, hit the play button, and we should see on our app that there's the 3 faces, right? Because we have 3 items in here. And if we add a comma and put in one more emoji, okay, let's do maybe the rocket ship. And if we hit play on this now, you can see that there's 4. So that's all working, and that's great. So we now have our table showing rows for however many items are in our array, but now we want to show the actual emojis that are inside of the array here, inside of the table, instead of the flush face every time. So hit enter a couple times to make some new space here, and what we need to do is tell Apple or Xcode here what we're going to do at each row, like what do we want inside of each of them. And the way to do that is using something called a for loop. And a for loop is basically a way to just repeat some code over and over again. So we're going to type for index in 0 dot dot greater than self.emojis.count. And then we're going to do the curly bracket, not the square one like we did up here, but one curly, and if we hit enter, then the other curly appears. Okay, so what is this? For index and 0 dot dot greater than self whatever, right? This is just saying for however many items are in here, in this case there's 4, we're going to loop through and run some code for every time there's something inside of here. And this is a way for us to say, okay, at the very first position in the table we want to have this heart eye emoji, and then the next one we want the hamster, and the next one we want the church, and then the rocket ship. So now that we've done that, we're going to type var space the capital row equals self dot table dot row controller at index, and inside of here, we're just going to use index. Okay. So what is this? We're just saying, okay, we want to have the row that it is we're going to be working with. And after this, you have to type as capital emoji row. And if you changed yours and you didn't call yours emoji row, use whatever name you had. But now that we have that, we're going to say the row dot emoji row label dot set text, and inside of here, for the time being, let's just type the words hey May. Okay, so what do these two lines of code do? They basically, first on this one, we create a variable by typing var, and the name of the variable is the row. And the row is different every time we run through this for loop. So in this table, the first time we run through, it's going to be the first item, then it's going to be the second, third, fourth, and we just want this to be a variable so that we can come down here and say the row dot emoji row label, which is just talking about this label that we created here. We want to set that equal to some text. So for the time being, it's just going to be hey main, but it's going to change later. So let's hit play and just make sure that worked. And you'll see instead of the little emoji faces, we now have hey main, and that's good. So instead of that, we're going to now say self dot emojis and do square brackets, not curly, and inside of the square brackets type index. Okay, so what's happening? So instead of just passing the words hey main, we're going to say whatever, because this index changes every time we run through here. So if we're talking about the first row, we want to add the first emoji, and that's how we get it, is we say index, use this one, okay? And if we're talking about the second one, we want to pass the hamster into there, and it just so on and so forth. So you'll notice if we hit play now and click on the simulator, bada bing, bada boom, there's our emojis. We can click on them, nothing cool happens, but this is some sweet progress. Like, let's add another emoji here. So comma, then do our quotes. Let's pass inside of here. Let's do another person one. Let's do the smiling pile of poo. Okay, so hit play on this. And we wait. Oh, we got to click on this. There he is. There he is inside of our table. So this is pretty exciting. We have this list of things, and whatever we add into this array, it shows up inside of this table. You should feel proud of yourself. But we're not done yet. The next thing that we want to do is when we click on one of these or tap on it, we want it to blow up the emoji really big so that we can get more info about it. So let's go back to interface.storyboard. And in this list of things down here, if we scroll up to the top, we have this interface controller. And just take one of those, control drag it out here. Interface controllers are basically screens inside of an Apple Watch app. So every time you're moving from one place to another inside of your app, it's a new interface controller. So the first one was this one, which is just called interface controller.swift, right? And this is where we have the table of all our emojis. In this one, we just want to have a super blown up picture of our emojis. So now that we have this interface controller, let's get a label to add inside of here to show the emoji. So just click label and do a control drag in there. Okay, and now that we have this label, let's just for the time being double click and change this to an emoji so we can kind of have an idea of what it will look like. I'll just pass the eyes into here. Okay, so now that we have this, we want to make it so that whenever we tap on one of these items in the list, that it goes to this guy. So let's click on this interface controller that we just made, and if we click on this little pointer here with the caret, we have to give it an identifier. We're going to call this Zoom Emoji Controller. Okay. And once you have that, copy it so you have the text exactly. And now let's go back to our interface controller.swift. So inside of here, we're going to write some code so that whenever someone taps on one of these things, that we're going to move over to that new screen or interface controller. So we have this whole function that's the init function. We're going to do a new one that gets called or runs this code whenever someone taps on one of those things. So just start typing table, and you should have this auto prompt come up, and just hit tab and it should fill in all of this code for you. And inside of here, we're just going to write one kind of big long line of code. So self dot push controller with name, and if you hit tab, it will autocomplete. For the name, paste the name that we had just copied, and then for the context, right now just do nil. Okay, and nil means nothing in Swift programming. It just means we're not passing anything into there. So now that we've done that, hit play, and let's go check out our app. So we have our table here, and let's say we click on one of these. Ho ho ho! There's our new interface controller. Okay, so even though it doesn't show the right emoji that we want, at least we could tap on one of the things in here and it brings up this one. And you can hit this back button to get back to where you need to. So we can really just click on any of these and just kind of move forward and backwards in our app. And something cool about the Apple Watch is if you drag from the left side, you can actually go back instead of hitting this button. So if we just do this and move over, you can see that our emojis come back, right? So anyways, that's great. Our issue right now is if I click on the hamster, we would expect that the hamster would show up here. So to fix that, go back to Xcode here, and we need to make a code version of this interface controller, right? We have one for this, but we don't have one for this. So let's go to this Emoji Dictionary WatchKit extension, right click and do new file. Okay, and we're going to do a Cocoa Touch class. And instead of doing NSObject, we want to do WK interface, and instead of button, we want controller. Okay, and for the class, we're going to call this Zoom Emoji Controller. Okay, we want it in Swift, hit next, create. Now this new file exists. So I'm just going to move this up with our other files here. And again, you'll see we have an error inside of here, and that's because we have to do this import WatchKit. Hopefully this improves with later versions of Xcode. But once you have that done, we now need to connect this code one that we have here and the one that's in the storyboard. So select this controller here and click on the newspaper, and for class just start typing Zoom Emoji Controller, and this is the name of the one that we made there. So we're going to hit tab, fills in everything for us. Life is great. So now that we have that done, we now need to take this label that we have and get it represented inside of this Zoom Emoji Controller. So let's do the circles for the split. And if you, with 2 fingers, you can move around the storyboard easily to get to where you need to. Make sure that you have the label selected. We're going to do a control drag over here. And we're just going to call this Zoom Emoji Label. Okay, and hit connect. Okay, now that we've done that, we need to go to interface controller, and we need to copy this init function because interface controller files need to have this init function, and Xcode doesn't provide it for you by default. So just copy this whole thing, control copy, and then go to Zoom Emoji Controller, and we're going to paste it inside of here. Okay, now that we've done that, we don't need most of the code that's in here because that was meant for our other controller. So let's delete all of this except for the super.init and this initialize variables here. Okay, so now that we have this, just for testing, let's type self.zoom emoji label .set text, and let's just say I'm the man. Okay, now that we've done that, hit play, and if we go to our app and click on one of our emojis, we can see that I demand shows up. Now, why is that important? That means that we can encode, manipulate what shows up here, okay? And so what we need to do is pass whatever emoji it is that they selected here into this Zoom emoji controller and put it into this set text. And the way that we do that is through this context. So before we had just said nil, but now we want to actually pass the emoji. So instead of nil, let's do self dot emojis and then the square brackets, and we're going to do row index. So the row index is the number of the one that they selected. So this is very similar to the code that we wrote here where it was saying, okay, give us the emoji inside of this emojis array at whatever number we specified. So if this row index is for the very first one, it's going to give us the heart eyes, and if it's for the last one, it gives us the smiling pile of poo. So now that we have that, we're going to go back to the Zoom emoji controller, and you can see this init function has a context, and that's the same thing. Whatever you pass here inside of this context shows up here inside of this context. And so we can say var emoji is equal to context as capital string. Okay, so we're just saying whatever our context is, we know that it's this string or some sort of text, and we're going to call it emoji. So instead of doing I'm the man, we're just going to simply type emoji here, and when we hit play, big drum roll, go to the simulator. If we click on the hamster, there's our hamster, and if we click on the poo, there's our poo. I mean, this is we're rock stars at this point, right? Like, you tap on something and it shows up on the next one. This is great. Okay, so you've done this. You're saying this is pretty awesome, but what's missing from our app? Well, if you click on the hamster here, you get the hamster at the same size. That's not what we want. We want the hamster big so we can see all the detail of the emoji. So let's go to our interface.storyboard and make sure you have this label selected here on our Zoom interface. And if you click on the little caret here, we can do some things with the size and position of this thing. So for size here, for the width, instead of set size to fit content, we're going to do relative to container. That way it fills the whole width. And for the height, we're going to do a fixed height. And I like 100. I think that's a good number. So we're going to keep it at 100. We also don't want our emoji to be over on the left, so we're going to hit the alignment here for it to be centered. Let's hit play just to make sure that works. Okay, build succeeded. If we click on our rocket ship, there's our rocket ship in the middle, but it's still not big. So unfortunately, in the storyboard, you can't make the size of this bigger. We have to do that through code, but it's not a huge issue. So what we're going to do is go to our Zoom emoji controller.swift, and in between this var emoji and the self.zoom emoji label, we're going to add some new code. We're going to type var a font, let's just call this lowercase font, is equal to capital UI font dot system font of size, and pass 30 into there. Okay, So this is saying whatever the default font of the system is on the Apple Watch, we're going to turn it into this variable called font. Okay, and we want it to be of size 30. So now that we have this font, we have to pass it into this label here, and we have to be a little bit special here and create something called an attributed string. So we're going to type var attr string, which is just my name for attributed string. You could call this whatever you want. In fact, let's just call this special string. And we're going to set this equal to ns attributed string, and then do a left parenthesis, and we want to scroll down until we get the one with string and attributes. Okay, so double click on that. For the string, we're just going to type emoji in here, which is the one that we got from the context, right? For the attributes, hit delete in there and do 2 square brackets, and on the left start typing ns font attribute name, and then do a colon, and then we're going to type lowercase font. So this is just saying we're making this special attributed string, and the text that we want in there is whatever is inside of the emoji, and we're going to use this new font that we created here. So now that we have that, we're going to type self.zoom emoji label .set attributed text, and we're going to pass in special string. Okay, and now that we've done that, we need to get rid of this set text, because now instead of using just a regular set text, we're using this set attributed text. So we'll go ahead and delete that, and we'll hit play. Build succeeded. Okay, now if we click on the hamster is a little bit bigger. And if we increase this number up to 60, okay, and we go to our simulator, the hamster gets even bigger. Let's go even crazier. Let's go with 90. We hit play, and we go to our simulator. That's a big hamster. So this is awesome, right? We have all these emojis. You click on one, and all of a sudden it's zoomed in. You can see all the detail that you want. Now the very last thing that we want to do in here is we want to have a definition for each of these emojis. So if I see this little creature here, I'm like, well, I don't really know what this is. I'd like to be able to tap on this, see a zoomed in version of it, and I'll also say hamster here. So the way to do that is go back to interface.storyboard. Let's drag a label out here, and we're just going to put it right beneath the other one that we have. And we want this one to be relative to container width. We also want it to be centered. And this new label that we just added, it's represented in the storyboard, but it's not represented in code. So let's do the rings here to split, and make sure that we have this label selected, not the emoji one up top, but this one. Do a control drag, okay, and just make sure you can put it anywhere you want. I'm just going to put it on top of the zoom one, and we're just going to call it definition label. Okay, connect that and go back to a single view, and let's go to zoom emoji controller.swift. And you'll notice if we hit play now, it's just going to show label here. So if we hit play, okay, and we go to our app, click on something, it says label, and it's like, yeah, that's cool, but we want to actually show the definition. So we're going to go to this zoom emoji controller, and we're going to make a little bit more space down here. We're going to say var definition is equal to, we're going to say no definition, and this is going to be our standard in case we don't have a definition for one of the emojis. We're just going to use no definition, and then below it we're going to say self.definition label.set text, and we're going to pass in definition, just like that. Now if we hit play and go check out our app, you'll notice we click on one of these, instead of saying just label, it says no definition. Okay, step in the right direction, but not exactly what we want yet. So let's go ahead and in between variable definition and this self.definition label, we're going to say if emoji is equal to, we're going to do the double quotes, and then do a left curly bracket and hit enter. So what's going on here? Well, we're using something called an if statement that's saying if something is true, do the following code. So we're saying if emoji, which is the emoji that has been passed in, is equal to, and let's say for instance, if it's equal to the hamster, okay, so if the emoji is equal to hamster, then instead of definition being equal to no definition, we want definition being equal to hamster. Okay, so now you'll notice if we hit play, okay, and come here, we click on, the heart eye ones, it says no definition. But if we click on the hamster, now it says hamster. Okay, so we can just make a bunch of these if statements for each of our different emojis. So let's, for example, go get the church one here. And so instead of the hamster, we're going to do the church. And so we're saying if the emoji is the church emoji, make the definition church. So now when we hit play and we click on the church here, it says church. So there's lots of different ways to do this definition thing. In fact, maybe once we get a little more programming under our belt, the best way would be to create an array of both the emojis and the definitions and be able to, pass these through so we don't have to do this if statement for each of the things, but instead we can just write everything right here. But maybe that's a challenge for you. See if you can figure out how to do that by yourself. So we've completed our app. Go ahead and add as many emojis as you want and as many definitions as you want. I actually do think it's very cool to see these emojis up close. Like you can kind of notice what the window looks like here and the different coloring on the rocket. To highlight the church, I love that inside of the windows, I'd always assumed it was just kind of some stained glass, whatever, but it's these like little bubbles that, I guess whoever designed the emoji meant for it to, be these bubbles that looks like stained glass, and it does a great job, but it's just interesting. Well, I hope you really enjoyed the tutorial and you have this awesome new app that you're showing off to all your friends and you're the cool kid on the block right now. I have a class that I'm making on how to make Apple Watch apps. It's going to go a lot more in depth than this little tutorial that I made, and I'm running a Kickstarter for it right now. So I'd really appreciate it if you would follow the links below and go check out my Kickstarter project. I'd love to have you on as a backer. If you sign up right now, you can get into the class for only $29. When it goes live in early December, it's going to be $200. So please go get it while it's cheap, and I'd love to see you in class. Thanks a ton for your time.